Are you ready to unlock the power within? To let go of fear, embrace vulnerability, and step into a life of alignment and fulfillment? Welcome. I'm Valina Stavropoulou, and this is a journey of unbecoming. Discovering a version of yourself you never knew existed. What does it mean to unbecome? It's about release, surrender, radical acceptance, and so much more. But what can unbecoming do for you? In each episode, I guide you on a journey to overcome self-doubt, set empowering boundaries, and uncover the untapped potential within you. Through honest storytelling, insightful interviews, and reflections drawn from my own experience of living with MS, you will find inspiration to face life's hurdles, embrace your authentic self, and thrive. Are you ready to cultivate deeper self-love, experience more joy, and live a life guided by purpose? It all starts now. Welcome to the Journey of Unbecoming, everyone. I'm Valina, your host, and I'm truly excited to have you here with me for another episode today. So, I've been sitting here with this wild contradiction that keeps showing up in my life, and I believe you have felt it too. It's that moment when everything you've been working toward, it's finally happening. It's right here waiting for you. But instead of pure joy, your body flips into panic mode. Your heart races, your chest tightens, not obviously in a good way. It's like standing at the edge of everything you've ever wanted, and suddenly your feet won't move. And that's exactly how I felt when I said yes to creating this podcast series with the Transformational Network here. It felt so much bigger of who I believed I was or I could do. And I'll never forget, the first episode back in January with Dr. Pat, I was so anxious. And later when I had my first solo episode sharing about, unbecoming through MS, sharing all of this with you in raw honesty, I was shaking. If only I had known that, how much I would fall in love with this process, how much and I would grow and expand in ways I never imagined. But in those moments, all I could hear was that voice. How on earth are you going to do this? Have you done enough to be creating this? Do you need more before you start? Can you actually, feel those 30 minutes? And this experience, and obviously many more from my past, is why I'm bringing this to you today. We spend so much time talking about the fear of failure. But what about the fear of success? The fear of actually stepping into everything you've been asking for? What if the voice saying, who do you think you are to be doing this, isn't protecting you at all, but is actually the biggest block between you and the life you're meant to live? So today we're diving into why success can sometimes feel scarier than failure, the ways we sabotage ourselves when life gets too good, and most importantly, how to finally accept that you're worthy of the expansion you're craving. So wherever you are, take a deep breath with me and exhale. Let's get real together about this beautiful and sometimes scary thing called success. And I want to start by sharing with you something I see often in my work as a transformational coach and hypnotherapist. I'm currently working with a client, a truly driven, talented person who's achieving incredible things every single day. Yet every time she hits a milestone, she almost shrinks. She struggles to recognize just how much she's already accomplished, even while showing up and giving her all every single day. She worries that if she fully steps into her success, she'll somehow overstep, or she will become cocky, or that people will always expect more from her. It's like her own growth is both exciting and terrifying at the same time. And honestly, I see so much of myself in her and probably in you too. So let's see why this happens. It sounds backwards, but I'll bet you'll recognize it immediately. Failure, we know. We've practiced it. We know how to fall down, how to regroup, how to try again. Failure most of the time comes with a script. Disappointment, negative self-talk, resilience. We know it. We've lived the story for many years. But what about success? Success is an unknown territory. There is no roadmap for holding more joy, more visibility, more responsibility, and definitely more love. And that's where the fear creeps in, because if you succeed, who will you become? What new expectations will be placed on you? Will the people around you still feel comfortable with your growth? Our minds are wired to cling to the familiar, even if that familiar keeps us small. Comfort tells you to stay here where you are, you know the rules, but then expansion demands from you to step into what you don't yet know. This is what Gay Hendricks calls the upper limit problem in his book, The Big Leap. So basically, he says that each one of us has an unconscious thermostat for how much success, happiness, or love we believe we can handle. Crazy, right? And when we rise above that set point, the nervous system sets off the alarm. This is too good. Something must be wrong. How many times have you told that to yourself? I mean, I definitely said it so many times. It's your primal alarm system trying to protect you from what feels unfamiliar, even when that threat is the very thing you've been working toward. So I'd love you to pause for a moment with this. What does failure look like to you? And how do you usually recover from it? And now, what does success actually mean to you? Beyond the goals, beyond the titles, what would it ask of you? When you imagine holding the very thing you've been working for, is there a part of you that wonders how long it will last? So here's the paradox. The fear of success isn't really about success at all. It's about change. It's about identity, who you'll need to become to hold the life you're dreaming of. It's about belonging, whether others will see you the same way when you grow. And it's about trust. Can you allow the good to stay, or do you brace for the moment everything goes away? And that's why success can feel so much scarier than failure, because it doesn't just test your ability to achieve, it actually tests your ability to receive. And I'll say it again because it matters. The fear of success is not really about success at all. It is about what it will change in you and around you. And one of the clearest places that paradox shows up is in our identity, of course. Because if success is going to change something, it usually starts with how we see ourselves. Many of us have built our entire sense of self around struggle. Being the underdog, the one who overcomes, the person who doesn't need much. And so when success finally shows up, there is that quiet whisper inside says, what if I'm not struggling? Then who am I? That familiar prison of struggle feels safe. It's the story we've been living for years. But when success threatens to break that narrative, the story we've been saying, strange feelings come up. You feel guilty of having it too easy. You fear you might become arrogant. You worry that you'll change to someone your past self wouldn't even recognize. And then, of course, come the identity attachments that keep us small. I'm the one who helps others, but never receives help. I'm humble. I can't shine too brightly. This was one I have used a lot myself. I don't need much, all while secretly craving the abundance. I'm not like those successful people, keeping separated from what we actually want. And I'm sure you felt it too, downplaying a win so you don't make anyone uncomfortable, brushing off a praise. Oh no, it was nothing. But that's not humility. That's your identity trying to protect you from expansion. We also worry that success will make others uncomfortable. They will, unintentionally, that we will unintentionally like push friends or family away. And this is also exactly where all those messages from childhood kick in. That success is selfish, or that rising higher and above is pretty dangerous. What we don't often talk about is that when we sabotage our own success, we're not just limiting ourselves. We're modeling limitation for everyone who's watching us, who's looking up to us. Our family, our siblings, our colleagues, our friends, our community, really. They learn that it is safer to stay comfortable and that success is something to fear rather than celebrate. So with that, I mean that stepping into your success isn't only about you. It's about giving permission to the entire world around you to expand. Isn't that beautiful? And here's what I really want to hold you close. Success does not erase who you are. It reveals more of your core essence. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more than you ever allowed yourself to be. Growth and expansion are not betrayals of your past self. They're the most natural next chapter of your story. So I wonder, what stories were you told about successful people growing up? What parts of your identity feel threatened by your potential success? Who would you be if struggle wasn't part of your story? And let's just get a little bit more vulnerable together here. What's your go-to sabotage patterns when life gets too good? Mine tends to be sticking to safe routines, keeping to what I know, avoiding things that might make me, get out of my comfort zone, stand out, and of course, a tad of perfectionism. So here we've talked about why success feels scary and how we sabotage it when it shows up. But now I want us to take a completely different turn. What if I told you that your worthiness isn't something you have to earn? That it's not a reward for good behavior or a praise for suffering enough? This is where we step into radical acceptance. And it begins with understanding that abundance isn't just about money or achievements. It is about recognizing that there is enough good to go around. Enough success, enough love, enough recognition, enough joy. The scarcity mindset may say, if I take this, someone else won't get it. But abundance knows better. When you step into your success fully, you create a ripple effect. You become proof that this is possible. And I want you to feel those words for a moment. You're not stepping up, you're not taking up space that belongs to someone else. You're not stealing any opportunities from anyone. You're simply occupying the space that was always meant for you. And your desires, they are not accidents. They are the compass showing you who you are becoming. That pull towards something bigger. That longing for more impact, more happiness, more freedom, more openness, those feelings are information. They're your soul saying, this is who you're meant to be. We spend so much energy trying to justify our worthiness instead of simply accepting it. We create stories about why we deserve good things, our hard work, our struggles, our service to others. But what if you don't need any of that? What if your worth is simply because you exist? That's radical acceptance at its core. Not the acceptance of settling, but the acceptance of your inherent right to thrive. I remember this landing for me in a very real way. When a couple of years ago I was doing my website, and when I wanted to shift my name, basically myself, as from a life coach to a transformational coach, it was a title that reflected the depth of my work. My first thought was, who am I to put myself out there like this? Would people understand? That critical voice crept in. But in that moment, when I leaned into radical acceptance, I allow myself to feel the truth. I'm worthy of this. I've earned this through growth, dedication, commitment, and so much learning. I shifted because I radically accepted who I had become. So I invite you here into abundance. Stop asking, am I worthy of this? And start asking, how can I fully receive this? Claiming your worthiness isn't claiming abundance. It's claiming abundance, not scarcity, actually, not comparison, not proving. Just that quiet, radical truth that there is more than enough, and that you have always been enough. And this is where the real magic begins, because, radical acceptance isn't just an idea. It's something we practice in the daily moments when success feels, again, both thrilling and terrifying. So what does this actually look like in practice? Worthiness isn't meant to live in our heads. It's meant to shape our choices, our actions, the way we show up. Expansion is about taking deliberate steps, small steps that let you fully embrace the person you're becoming. And yes, again, excitement and fear can absolutely coexist. That's normal. So I want to share with you 4 ways to anchor this in your life. First and foremost, own your wins fully. Pause to acknowledge your accomplishments. Big or small, they're proof of your growth, commitment, and courage. Let yourself feel the pride and savor the moment. I remember myself when I wrote my first blog back in 2018. For a moment when I finished it, I kind of paused and thought, wow, I actually did it. Am I right? What happened? And it felt small, for others, maybe nothing, but in truth, it was huge for me. That moment reminded me that celebrating these wins, either big or small, is what gives us courage and boosts our growth. And this also might look like actually saying thank you when someone compliments your work, compliments you, or taking a screenshot of a text that your boss sent you, and it's like glowing like about your performance. Or calling your best friend to say good news instead of keeping it to yourself because you don't want to brag. Second, notice when you hold back. Observe when fear or habit makes you shrink. Maybe you write a great email response, and instead of sharing, instead of like be okay with it and confident, then delete half of it because it just sounded weird. Or someone asks about your work, and again, instead of sharing excitement and say, oh yeah, thank you, amazing, you downplayed, oh no, it's nothing special. These moments, they're not character flaws. They're invitations. Each time you catch yourself doing something like that, you can choose differently. And you can ask yourself, what would happen if I let myself be seen here? Third, challenge your self-sabotage patterns. These are often the ways we keep ourselves just busy enough, just distracted enough, just overwhelmed enough. to avoid the next level. Tell me how many times you decided suddenly to go deep clean your flat, your entire flat, the day before a big deadline. I'm sure there are people out there nodding, I'm sure. Or you find yourself scrolling on social media instead of working on a project that could change everything. We've all done it. This goal the goal actually isn't to judge these patterns. It's to recognize them as your mind's way of keeping you safe and keeping you away from the unknown. And once you become aware of them and you see them clearly, you can thank them for trying to protect you and then choose expansion anyway. And 4, lean on those who celebrate you. You know who these people are in your life. They're the ones who light up when you share good news, who ask how your projects are going, who reminds you of your strengths when you forget and when you need it the most. Call them, text them. Let them see your dreams. Share with them what you have in mind, and what's their excitement becomes the boost that you need. We talked about it extensively on the previous episode, the garden of belonging, who's meant to be with you and who's not. And now, I want to also share with you something really powerful that I would like you to try either now or later. And I'm sure it's going to shift the way you see yourself. That's one of the favorite tools that I'm using with my clients, but also for myself as well. So we're going to create what I call a success life map. And this is not just another journaling exercise, but it is you bearing witness to your own journey. This is you seeing clearly in front of you the incredible human you've become through every choice, every risk, and every moment you didn't give up. So I want you to take a piece of paper and draw a horizontal line. And this line is a timeline from your earliest memories to today. And I would like you to highlight your key achievements and moments of growth. Again, either they're big or they're small. And at each point, I want you to jot a few words describing the accomplishment, how it made you feel, what happened, the people, go creative. Include everything. Graduating, your first job, your first trip by yourself, moving away from home, moving countries, learning a new skill, coming back from a breakup, starting something you were scared to try, surviving something that felt impossible. When you finish doing this, I'd like you to notice how many times you've already stepped into the unknown and thrived. This map becomes your evidence, your reminder that you're not someone who dreams small. You're someone who has been growing, expanding, unbecoming, and claiming your space all along. And then I'd like you to look at your map again, the timeline, and as you do, I want you to ask yourself, which achievements did I minimize or overlook? Where did I fully step into my worthiness? How can these successes fuel your next steps toward bigger goals and bigger dreams? Every mark on that map is proof. It's proof that you're capable, that you're worthy, that you matter, and that you're ready to expand even more. Your successes are real and they matter, and they deserve to be celebrated first and foremost by you. So as we wrap up, let's just anchor in today's episode with the last invitation to you. What would shift? What would shift in you if you stopped questioning your worthiness and simply claimed it? How would you show up if you trusted that your success is not selfish but a gift that ripples outward? And what becomes possible when you finally allow yourself to take up the space you were born to hold? Your dreams didn't land in your heart by accident. They chose you for a reason. The world needs you in your fullest expansion, not smaller, not edited version you've been told to be. Every time you choose expansion over contraction, you give others permission to do the same. So always I'd love to hear how this landed for you. Come and connect with me at my website, mindhierarchy.com. Find me on my Instagram on Mind Hierarchy. If this episode spoke to you today, share it with a friend who might be blank smaller than their potential. It might be exactly the nuts they need. I'm Valina. This has been the Journey of Unbecoming. Until next time, trust your worthiness, embrace your expansion, and as always, keep unbecoming. I'm Valina Stavropoulou, and you have been listening to the Journey of Unbecoming, discovering a version of yourself you never knew existed. Tune in every first and third Thursday at 9 Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for a space where you are seen, heard, understood, and deeply supported. Remember, you do not have to find your way back to your heart alone. Each episode invites you to explore what unbecoming means for your mind, body, spirit, and emotions, a transformative process of releasing what no longer serves you. This show is not just about overcoming challenges. It is about celebrating the beauty of letting go and stepping boldly into a life of joy, purpose, and self-confidence. For more information and to connect with me, visit mindhierarchy.com.